Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a massive spatial journey. We're going to start with a giant macro view of the globe and zoom all the way down into the incredibly complex physical and political geography of India. It's kind of like a giant puzzle, and we're going to see exactly how location, sheer scale, and centuries-old treaties shape the map we know today. Let's get right into it.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. India on the world map. 2. Dimensions and extreme points. 3. Coastlines and critical coordinates. 4. Defining the Indian subcontinent. And 5. Geopolitical borders and terms.
Starting off with Section 1, India on the world map.
To really kick off this journey, we have to nail down India's exact macro location. It sounds basic, right? But it's actually super easy to trip up on this in a trivia quiz. Relative to the equator and the prime meridian, India sits perfectly right there in the northeastern hemisphere. But if you're zooming in just on the continent of Asia, the exact precise geographical term you want to use is that it's located in the south-central part of Asia. Zooming in just a bit, India covers over 3.28 million square kilometers. That is massive. It's roughly 2.4% of the entire world's surface area. Now, if you ever need to remember the world's largest countries by area, you can actually use a really fun mnemonic. Royal challengers went to Cuba Island. Match the letters and you get Russia, Canada, China, USA, Brazil, Australia, and coming in at number 7, India. It's a lifesaver for quick recall.
All right, moving right along to Section 2, Dimensions and Extreme Points. 3,214 kilometers. Just let that sink in for a second. That is the exact straight-line distance from India's northernmost boundary all the way down to the tip of Kanyakumari on the mainland. To put that into perspective, traveling that distance is literally like crossing a huge chunk of Europe, all without ever leaving a single national border.
Now, let's break down those extreme outer limits. A lot of older textbooks get the northernmost point wrong, but the accurate coordinate is Tash Kuran at 37 degrees 6 minutes north. Meanwhile, if you include the islands, the southernmost point of the whole territory is Indira Point at 6 degrees 45 minutes north. Some of you might know that by its older name, Pygmalion Point. And going horizontally, well, from Gahar Moti out west to Kabithu in the east, that spans a staggering 2,933 kilometers.
So try this little thought experiment. If you started Guhar Moti in Gujarat and draw a perfectly straight line over to Kabithu in Arunachal Pradesh, what is the absolute shortest state-by-state path? How many state borders are you crossing? It's a really fun way to test your mental map of the country's internal geography.
Okay, Section 3, Coastlines and Critical Coordinates. Now, you might have seen older textbooks citing a coastline of about 7,516 kilometers. But here is a crucial update. A recent government circular updated the total coastline length, including every single island, to exactly 11,098.81 kilometers. So, if you're looking for the most accurate, modern geographical data, that's the number you absolutely need to lock into your memory. And how exactly is that massive coastline distributed? Well, if we include Union territories, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands actually take the crown for the longest coastline overall. But if we're talking strictly states, Gujarat is number 1. A great way to remember the state coastline rankings in descending order is this quirky phrase, GTA man work knock to knock. That gives you G for Gujarat, T for Tamil Nadu, A for Andhra Pradesh, man for Maharashtra, work for West Bengal, and Kayanak for Karnataka. Pretty handy, right?
Let's head inland for a moment to check out two crucial lines crisscrossing the country. First, the Tropic of Cancer essentially slices India horizontally right through 8 states. Cities like Ranchi are sitting directly on it. Then, you have the Indian Standard Time longitude, sitting at 82 degrees 30 minutes east, cutting vertically through 5 states and passing right through Mirzapur. Oh, and a quick geographical trap to watch out for. This vertical IST line completely bypasses Telangana, even though it goes right through its neighbor, Andhra Pradesh.
Moving on to Section 4, Defining the Indian Subcontinent.
You know, people get confused by the term Indian subcontinent all the time, mostly because the definition totally changes depending on what criteria you're using. Culturally and historically speaking, a lot of textbooks lump in the island nations of Sri Lanka and the Maldives because of shared history. But if we are strictly talking about the continuous geographic landmass, the subcontinent is just 5 core countries: India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh. And finally, Section 5, Geopolitical Borders and Terms.
Zooming all the way out to the very edges, India shares land borders with 7 different nations. The longest is a massive 4,096-kilometer boundary with Bangladesh, shrinking all the way down to an 80-kilometer stretch with Afghanistan. Want a quick way to remember the descending order? Just use the phrase BC Pakistan MBA Nepal. That spells out Bangladesh, China, Pakistan, Nepal, Myanmar, Bhutan, and Afghanistan in perfect descending order.
Now, let's break down some of these highly specific geopolitical terms, starting with the LOC. The line of control is the 776-kilometer military control line situated in the Jammu and Kashmir region. A really important historical detail here is that this was originally called the ceasefire line, but it was officially renamed after the 1974 Shimla Agreement. Moving east, we run into the LAC, or the Line of Actual Control. This is the de facto border that separates Indian-controlled territory from Chinese-controlled territory. And it is not just one small segment. It stretches a staggering 3,488 kilometers across 3 distinct sectors: the western, the middle, and the eastern. Now, if we go further north, past map coordinate NJ9842, we hit the AGPL, which stands for the Actual Ground Position Line. This is an incredibly high-altitude 110-kilometer demarcation up in the Siachen Glacier region. Basically, it represents the physical, current locations of troops in what is widely known as the highest battlefield in the entire world.
Stepping away from military lines, we also have formal international borders. On the Western Front, the undisputed international border separating India and Pakistan, stretching from Gujarat all the way up to Punjab, is the famous Radcliffe Line. It was named right after the British Boundary Commission that originally drew it up during partition.
Over on the eastern side, we have the McMahon Line. This 1,890-kilometer boundary separates Arunachal Pradesh from Tibet, and it came about during the 1914 Shimla Convention between British India and Tibet. But here is the geopolitical catch. Today, this line is actually the subject of an ongoing historical dispute because China claims the region based on totally different interpretations of that 1914 convention.
Speaking of historical disputes, border complexities aren't just limited to giant sweeping lines. Take the Kalapani region. It's a fascinating and highly sensitive trijunction involving India, Nepal, and China. It all goes back to an incredibly old document, the 1816 Treaty of Sugoli, which designated the Kali River as a boundary. But centuries later, differing interpretations of exactly where that river actually originates have created administrative overlaps and ongoing negotiations between India and Nepal.
We see something really similar all the way over in the coastal marshes of Gujarat with the Sur Creek dispute. This is a classic tension in international law. Do you follow standard conventions and draw the boundary right down the middle of the water, which is India's stance? Or do you claim the entire resource-rich creek for one side, which Pakistan argues? It just goes to show how a tiny strip of marshland can turn into a massive geopolitical issue.
And that brings us to the end of this explainer. From macro latitudes down to micro river creeks, geography is never just a static drawing on a piece of paper. It is deeply alive, constantly interpreted, and always shifting. So the big question is, as resources get more scarce and international relations continue to evolve, how will these complex, centuries-old treaties and heavily guarded borders reshape the Indian subcontinent in the decades to come? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this spatial journey.